As we fly over the Sun River to the east of the Rocky Mountain front, we can see the Sawtooth Mountains running north and south. So to the left, as you look at the mountains, is south, to the right is north. You can see the Sun River Canyon, where the Sun River is cut through this resistant material and carved a canyon. Interesting though here, out on the flatter area, as we look closer to the ground, right above the Sun River, you can start to see interesting things in the geology. What we can see here is a fold. So we have a fold, it's like an arch in the rocks, and it's called an anticline. And that's from when you take tectonic forces and compress the continent. So in this case, it was compressing from the west and the east. So imagine putting a piece of paper on a table and pushing it equally from either side. It will fold in the middle. And you can see that fold here. Again, we call it an anticline. And the compression was from the east and the west. We know that because the hinge of the anticline, the peak of that arch, is oriented north-south. You can see to the right, to the east, you have limbs coming off, and also to the west, you have limbs coming off. So this is evidence of compressional tectonics. And it'd be really interesting to see as we go into the Sun River Canyon, do we have more evidence of that tectonics? And is that why these mountains are here? Were they created through a compressional tectonic regime? I'm really excited to get in there and see what we can find. As we drive further into the Sun River Canyon, you can get a closer look at these limestone walls. And commonly what we're looking for when we look at sedimentary rocks, as you can see here on the left, we're looking for bedding and the orientation of that bedding. And this appears to not be flat. So as we look out the left here, you can see that it appears to be pointing up and to the left. And then we look down to the right across the river, we can get a close look at that bedding. Let's go down there and check it out and see if we can tell something more about the orientation of this bedding. In doing so, that allows us to say more about the geologic history of the area. Because this material would have been laid down flat, if it's no longer flat, which it appears if you look off here to the right to be no longer laid down flat, we can tell a lot about this area based on the orientation of that bedding. And this is a really incredible shot where you can see the bedding down here at river level and then all that bedding up into the mountains on those cliffs off to the right. So let's go take a look and see what we can find down by the river. Now we're down at river level on the Sun River, on the Madison limestone, on a beautiful August morning. Of course, limestone, when it's created, is laid down flat. And as we look right in front of us here, and off to the right on a much larger scale, on that large cliff, these layers are no longer flat. So how can that happen? How can we take those layers and have them now pointing sort of up into the sky? In this case, it's because the North American continent, about 67 million years ago, was smooshed together from the east and the west. And so the rocks have to respond. And in this case, this very resistant, strong unit thrust itself up over and got into this orientation. So that's how we got these rocks to be here today. And that's why this limestone, this resistant unit, creates these beautiful mountains that we see here in northern Montana. So now we're back in the Sun River Canyon, and this is an amazing spot to see how these mountains were formed. So if we look downstream here, we're facing east, you can see the jagged peaks. If you look at the sunlit face of that peak, down a little bit to the right, you can see the layering in the limestone. So that's the Madison limestone, 300 and some million years old. And that layering, of course, is pointing up and to the right. And it was originally laid down flat. So how did it get that way? Well, let's look over here to the right, and we have a bit of an explanation for that. So as I'm walking up towards the road, you can see that layer on top is folded. It's curved. And that's because it's been compressed. And so to create these mountains, you had compression of the North American continent from the east and the west. That was about 67 million years ago. And so what happens when you compress that is you can have folding and faulting. In this case, the limestone there at the top has this nice smiley face looking fold. And then what happened was that limestone, 300 and some million years old, was thrust up over the top of this darker unit, this Cretaceous shale. So this was formed in the Cretaceous less than 100 million years ago. This rock on the left and this rock on the right is greater than 300 million years old. And so right here you can actually see the contact between the two, where we have the younger shale on the left and the older limestone on the right. Normally in geology, on top you would have the younger units. So here, having the older unit on top, we know something happened. In this case, it was this mountain building event where we built the Rocky Mountains in what we call an orogeny, a mountain building event. And they've dated that event here to be about 67 million years ago. So just incredible as we look around seeing all this limestone thrust up over the top of this Cretaceous shale. Just incredible to see this geology in action. We're at a lookout up above the Gibson Reservoir and the Gibson Dam, as you can see down below us. Now we're looking towards the dam, we're looking south. And what you'll notice is we have a limestone ridge in front of us above the dam. And then we have a valley to the east of it, to the left. And then we have another limestone ridge. And here you can see how the geology manifests with time. So the limestone is more resistant, it's making the ridges, and the valleys are formed by that Cretaceous shale, which is much easier to erode. And then another ridge is the limestone. So we have stacked layers of limestone shale, limestone shale. And now as you look into what the mountains are now, you can see how the geology creates that situation. Just a wonderful spot here in the Sun River Canyon to see geology over the past 300 plus million years and what it's left us today.